Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is our guest speaker, the Chief Operating Officer of Digital Transformation at Brandix, Sri Lanka's digital transformation and telecommunications sector, a prominent figure who was in it, with an extensive background that includes roles as the Chairman of ICTA and Director General of Telecommunications Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka. He has played a pivotal role in shaping the country's digital landscape. Some of the notable events or activities which were commendable during his tenure: the Connect Sri Lanka project, a nationwide endeavor to expand 4G and fiber broadband coverage and to reduce the digital divide through platforms like e-Taksalava of state schools. His contributions have made telecommunications and data services more affordable, introducing unlimited service plans and OTT services like Netflix. His diverse career includes leadership roles in startup ventures and consulting for technology-based startups, particularly in banking and finance sectors. With a rich educational background, including an MBA from AIB Australia and a bachelor's degree from the University of Northumbria in Newcastle, his contributions have been recognized with accolades, including the Most Outstanding Alumnus Award from the Oxford College of Business, and being a professional achievement as he's committed to community engagement, which exemplified by his Tech Forward initiative, which focuses on ICT capacity building and connectivity for schools, facilitating technology empowerment for the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for your guest speaker, Mr. Oshada Senanayake.
Good evening, everyone. I have an interesting challenge where I need to keep you engaged after breakfast, lunch, and tea, and hopefully I make a good one at it. So I'm just going to take a very different analogy on this because you all have heard a lot about the technical aspects of how Zero Trust works. And Belly basically saved a lot of my effort in explaining it, but I will delve slightly into it. But I'll focus on exactly why we are here in terms of supporting digital transformation, specifically from an organizational point of view. All what we do in terms of cybersecurity, all what we do in terms of resilience and creating robustness in terms of infrastructure is all about ensuring organizations stay true to their pivot towards the future. Now, we all know what happened when AI came into the foray, although we've had Watsons and all that for the last 10 years. Last November, I think these are out of battery Murphy's Law. Last November, anybody knows how fast it took ChatGPT to get to 1 million users? Any guesses? I don't have a cross pen to give out, but 5 days. Anybody knows what Netflix took to get to that point? 3.5 years. 3.5 years. That record was broken by threads coming in through Instagram, which took about a couple of hours to basically get to 1 million, but then again, it's an offshoot of Insta. So this still doesn't work, so y'all will have to move to, yeah, there it goes. All right, so my key point, why are we talking about digital transformation and why am I personally a fanatic of digital transformation? Forget me talking about it, this is IDC predicting this information in 2019. 75% of organizations will have comprehensive digital transformation roadmaps by 2023, which is the year we are in right now. And the investment is staggering, right? But the interesting point is, out of these digital transformations, 84% of these projects fail. Again, this is not me saying it, it's ENY, KPMG, BCG, you go into any analytics, 84% of digital transformations fail. Why? Because people still think digital is on the side of an organizational operation. The decision making is purely focused on just thinking about the business model. But the reality is, digital has to be in the core. So if your organization is still thinking about digital, but it's on the side rails, well, you're not going to get there. But all what we do has to be digital in the core. And what do we mean by digital in the core, right? There are 7 layers that we talk about. Typically, digital transformation is always known about technology. Let me break that boundary and tell you, digital transformation is all about change management, communication, and also about adoption. I would also be eager to also say, possibly technology could be even as low as 25% in terms of digital transformation. But if you look at the 7 layers of that, customer experience, This morning, it struck me when Vipin said the last time he visited a bank was in 2009. Do you think we can do that in Sri Lanka? I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate. We all talk about digital transformation, but are we getting a customer experience that's end-to-end, right? It's got better. It's got better. But can we go to the point that it would be 12 years before we visit a bank branch, or it could be a public sector entity that we want to go and get something done? The culture, right? Again, people think digital transformation is just left over to the IT organization. Cybersecurity is left over to the security operation teams, or again, the IT team. Think about it. The culture has to be aligned in an organization where digital transformation has to start from the boardroom. The discussion has to be a boardroom discussion. It shouldn't be just about annual budget that just talks about CapEx in terms of getting end-of-life devices sorted out. That's not where we are right now. And if it's going to be the case, chances are that that organization is never having a cybersecurity discussion even on the boardroom. Their audit committees, their risk committees might not be having even a discussion about cybersecurity, right? But then again, digital transformation is ongoing, but they don't understand the risk matrix, the risk impact on the business if you don't look at that front. That's where the business model aspect comes in. And the organization itself has to basically pivot on processes that changes based on this digital impetus. Today, again, most of you all would come from technology leadership units, leaders yourself, but think about it. How many organizations are willing to change processes, right? We are told to basically bring the best of the Mercedes-Benz of technology, the cutting-edge technology in terms of cybersecurity, but how many people really think about the processes, right? I always have this analogy of it. It's like putting alloy wheels to a Morris Minor if you don't change the processes and try to bring in the technology. That's not digital transformation, that is digital improvement. Digital transformation, to be true digital transformation, or DX as we call it, has to have the processes in mind as well. And the leadership and capabilities has to ever evolve. Today, Mr. Alvis from the central bank talked about how they've defined even the CISO's reporting structure. That's brilliant. But I don't agree with the post on how organizations can go on the cloud. I believe we have to have more impotence in encouraging organizations to go on the cloud. If you are talking about availability, the fact of the matter is cloud will help. You need to get to cloud. The cybersecurity posture, again, gone are the days that you can depend on a SIEM, and so you can outsource the whole management of your SOC. But at the end of the day, because of this hybrid cloud, there's no way that you can have one SIEM and SOC in one place and have a hybrid cloud environment where, again, Anubhav will agree with me if he's around there, whether it's GCP, whether it's Microsoft Azure, or whether it's AWS, there's a lot of egress costs. So imagine everything we do on a cloud, we want to bring to our SIEM, which is our security incident and event management system. And on top of that, the SOC coming in to orchestrate the automation. That's going to be costly. And that's why we have the federated model coming in, right? So all of these has to be discussed. Infrastructure, right? We talk about zero trust. We talk about the zero trust network access aspect, ZTNA. But as Billy said, zero trust is not just technology, it's not just services. Let's start from the fact that zero trust is a strategy, right? It has to start from a strategy. And that's what's important. So why do we have to have focus on cybersecurity on this front? Now, this is a very interesting thing that I got from CIU Insights. 69% of ICT leadership agrees that they have to respond to digital transformation and innovation by forcing major security strategy changes, right? But if you really look at it, the fact of the matter is, it's the mindset. 47% claim the organization has not been affected by a data breach. How true to life do you all think that this is? I'm not advocating you all to go into the dark web. If you know how to go figure, right? And go check how much of, and Asal is laughing at me and smiling, go check how much of breached passwords are there in Sri Lanka on dark web. And I'm talking, top public to private organizations that they don't even know, right? And this is real, right? And again, Google Chromes and all of this is coming into play. For example, how many of you all changed the root password of your home router? How many of you all, right? A network or telco service provider could give it to you. How many of you all go to that step? Guess what? Today you go, open up Google Chrome, I'm not going to mention brand names, go put the root, I'm not going to say the root and the password, go put the standard logins, and what will pop up? It will say it's part of a data breach. And that's what Anubhav talked about, how AI and analytics and ML is coming through on Chrome, right? That means is all your information is accessible. Imagine through that you can basically go laterally, access your drives, your OneDrives or Google Drives or whatever you use, your personal information, your children's information, your transactions, whatever the pizza or whatever Friday night you order, everything is out there, right? Just to give an example. So it's the same thing that organizations have, right? They don't understand the implications. So this is one case study that I'll quickly go through. If you remember, on February 2022, Toyota had to shut down 14 of their plants. Why? Did they get breached? No, their supply chain did, right? If you look at the Nagoya port, again, that was the issue, right? For us, it's the same thing coming from a manufacturing background right now on my role. For us, we can't afford to have a data breach. Why? There's millions and millions of pieces of apparel that is expected, and we are trusted, although it's zero trust, we are trusted to ship on time, right? Imagine the loss of credibility. Imagine the loss of impact for the customers itself. Imagine when you look at our supply chain if you don't do that due diligence. And since the reason today, all of our top clientele does a cybersecurity evaluation on us. And it's going to come across all manufacturing entities, right? Whether it's manufacturing, whether it's services, that's how it is. So what is zero trust? What does it got to do about digital transformation? As much as we continue to pivot on digital to ensure that our organizations are set apart from the competition, right, the threat surface increases. For us in the manufacturing, again, it's all about the industrial revolution 4.0. It's not a fad anymore. It's not lip service. Either we automate today or we are left high to dry. We might be the biggest organization today. In another 3 years, we might be out of business. Why? Because all regional manufacturing entities, whether it be apparel or any other manufacturing entity, are pivoting on industrial automation. That doesn't mean to say that we are moving out all the operators or whatever. It doesn't mean that, right? There are certain aspects we need to bring in Internet of Things. IIoT, as Billy said, again, another flavor, industrial IoT. But imagine the expansion of the threat vector on that, the threat surface. Imagine if there's an issue on our Internet of Things connected to our machinery, to our plant systems. One breach could give all of our information out in terms of our production, in terms of our cost per minute. Everything could be reverse engineered, right? Corporate espionage, a reality, let's not, it's elephant in the room, that happens globally, and that's happening through information security breaches. That's how it is. So very simply, zero trust, again, Billy explained about it. It's simply about a paradigm shift of thinking. Gone are the days, again, I think Nitin talked about it earlier on in the day, it is not about a castle and moat scenario where we were hoping that we can really put up a big wall or we can really put up the firewalls and all that and lock the perimeter. But then again, also, we know about the whole the story of the Trojan horse, right? That's how it is coming through. Thank you. And in cybersecurity, there's a Trojan horse concept. So today, why can't we have that whole castle and moat, or why can't we have that typical perimeter fencing? Very simple, right? Because after the COVID pandemic, right, the whole way we work changed. The way the workforce's work has changed. Gone are the days that our internal workforce will work internally. And I'll come to that in the next slide. Our suppliers that connect to our systems. Our partners, privilege, access that our power users have has changed. So you really cannot basically hold on to that. And more importantly, if you are going on a hybrid cloud, you can't have this approach of not having zero trust. Security Service Edge, the techies would know, is all about an agent-based thing where you have your EDR or your XDRs or all that set up, right? But today it's going on to SASE model. Anybody knows about SASE? Secure Access Service Edge. Big word, but literally we are consolidating all of our perimeters and all of our security on the cloud front. So it doesn't matter where you're connecting, right? It's zero trust. Everything is verified on the cloud. So literally from that 30-year-old VPN-based approach where we maybe, if it's legacy applications, you do PuTTY to you do basically open ports to all that, all scary lingo in terms of cybersecurity goes out of the window, and we are looking at a SASE model. So you don't have to invest on these switches to firewalls or whatever. It completely goes on that. But you need to have the basic rigor to do it. So zero trust is pretty much those days. If you have a firewall, that's it, except you have a DMC over that. But today, just like an airport, you are checked at every point. Check-in, you are checked. Baggage check-in again, you are checked. Security, immigration, boarding gate, even the boarding gate. You know the Sri Lanka story, right? Even on the boarding gate, they verify and check your visa to whether you have got a fake one done. Zero trust. Interestingly, 2 weeks back, they've taken out the main security and you walk in. But then again, this is how it is. So for me or for us, zero trust is checking every point of the way. How many times have you seen on Google when you try to log in from another device, it checks whether it's you? A device has logged in from this location. That is zero trust. You are sent, the latest trend is you are sent basically even a number to verify your device. That's how it is, right? So that's how it is. But again, to summarize what Billy said, I won't go into detail. Literally, zero trust security model has 3 things in fundamental point. 1, never trust, always verify, right? It's a small difference to what he said, but never trust, I completely agree, and always verify. Second thing is least privilege assignment. You have to ensure, it doesn't matter whether you are the director of the organization, whether you are the CEO of digital transformation. If you don't need access to a system, you don't need it. That's it. That's why the PAM solutions come in and real-time, just-in-time access comes in. That's very important. The third thing that we all lose focus on is assume a breach. We are quite self-confident people, right? Especially tech geeks and tech gurus of the tech leadership. It's not about whether we are going to get hacked. It's about when we are going to get hacked. If you don't change that mindset to when we are going to get hacked, you are going to get hacked, and Godspeed to you, right? So assume a breach. How many organizations in Sri Lanka has run books and playbooks to thwart an event if that happens? Tonight when we go home, and God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen, if your organization is under ransomware attack where literally tomorrow morning you have no access to any of your information, and you're supposed to pay billions of dollars on Bitcoin, right? Do you have a run book? Do you have a playbook? Are you going to run a call to basically your friends? Are you going to call TechCert or whatever it takes, or SLCert or whatever? No, it doesn't work like that. Where's your run book? Have you done a trial? How many of your organizations do a red teaming? Anybody? How many organizations does red teaming? I'm not talking about bootstrap red teaming. I'm talking about proper red teaming activities, right? How many of y'all? No hands, right? I rest my case, right? So if you don't have the investment, if you don't have the budget, it's our responsibility to ensure the leadership knows that there has to be budget for that, right? One of our red teaming scenarios, we found out threats that our SOC didn't find out, right? And that's why it's all about zero trust on ensuring that you forecast a hack, right? So you have to assume a breach. You can't presume that you are secure, right? That's key for me, right? So when we go on to the next point, the users, very simple, I'll just reiterate it very quickly in a minute. Are we having the right users connecting onto our systems? So obviously identity management, simple, AD or whatever you call it you want based on platforms. I'm trying to stay away from mentioning brands or technology stacks or whatever. But the second thing is how many of us have ID analytics enabled? You could be a right user, but beyond a time, do you really need the access that you need? Third point, privilege access management. Privilege access management is all about insider threats, managing insider threats. I might be the best tech guy inside managing my network, but guess what? I might be an insider threat, although I don't know it. Just like the Uber hack, right? Imagine that 16-year-old guy going into the code repository and putting out the code out there. Lateral movement across one point, getting into it. So right users, the right access. How do you look at the right access? Very simple, access management, right? But the second thing is adaptive authentication. yes, they have the right access, but do you need the right access which is static across? It doesn't work anymore like that. So you need to have adaptive authentication built into the system. A lot of people don't think about. So we have the right users verified, we have the right access. Then what about the fact that they have right access to the data? How many organization has done a proper discovery and data classification? How many? Yeah? Some, which is great. It's imperative. It's painful, I know, but it's imperative. Second thing is encryption. Again, when you talk about encryption, it has to cut across all the devices. Today, we have so much of BYODs coming in. I see so many organizations not even have a mobility solution or MDM, right? So what are we talking about encryption? Encryption has to be end-to-end, right? So these are critical. So we have now right users, the right access, right data, but then again, the final point is, for what purpose? Is the purpose verified, right? The data access management, critical. Do you have a data access management front that verifies things? How many organizations have information rights protection today, right? You have IRMs today. You can have a document. Now the scenario for a lot of organizations is, when people exit the organization, you cut over all the information, documents, copy over or whatever, and you take it over. But if you have IRM, it doesn't matter. You encrypted everything. You can't open those Excel sheets or your strategies or whatever outside of the domain. No way, right? So it doesn't matter. Zero trust again. But how many of us has that? So the purpose could change, right? Today I might be a guy on notice period, and I'm going to offload everything I have because I want to go basically make sure that I cascade all the learnings to the next organization. That's what's important. You need to understand. And the second thing on the purpose, the last point is device management. Configuration. Your device configuration, your server and network configuration, but more importantly, your cloud stack configuration. Now, talking about digital transformation, we are ever pressured to basically move on to the cloud. But again, what about the modernization of the application stacks? When you have your own data center, you might be having monolithic architectures where you have very, very trivial approaches of a database and a SOA architecture or whatever. When you move on to the cloud, if you really want to make it cloud native, you need to start moving it onto microservices. You need to basically do compartmentalization. You need to ensure that's load balancing to get the best of the breed cloud economies of scale, right? But the reality of it is, when you go to the cloud, it's a shared model, right? It was mentioned again by the previous speaker. It's a shared model. Security of the cloud will be managed by whatever the cloud service provider, GCP, AWS, Azure, or Huawei, or whatever, right? The security in the cloud is your responsibility. And security in the cloud is not easy at its take. The developed or transformed or modernized applications, has it gone through a proper cybersecurity assessment? Now, people again think that it's just a penetration test. You run, again, I can't mention names of VAPTs, but you run certain things. That's not the case, that's the endpoint. What about the CI/CD pipelines, the continuous integration and the continuous development where we do agile development? You need to have DevSecOps integrated. Do you do code smells? Or do your vendors do code smells? Do you do static code analysis, right? All of these is important. Throw away that mindset that you just need to do a final VAPT, right? It's got to be integrated. So this is what zero trust is, very simply. So again, one does this meme that I like is not about any about a perimeter. It's about ensuring you don't trust anyone at all, whether it's the internal workforce or whether it's outside workforce. I'm not going to go through all this, I'm going to skip. And the next point is the use cases. So the strategy is key for zero trust. Do you align with your SSC or is it going to be independent of SSC? So as I said, security service edge is more towards agent-based, but then again, if you go into a SASE, that's very different and it might have to go agentless because you can't always basically put XDR or EDR on any of your endpoints. But the key use cases are very simple, again, as I said, internal workforce remote access, extended workforce remote access, and BYOD, that's your partners or your extended teams working, privileged remote access, that is for the super users, the IT users, and all of that coming in, and on-premise access, right? So all of this I've explained in detail. Again, the internal workforce cannot be trusted. And again, as one example that was mentioned, I might have a tag of the organization. I might be walking around as I'm basically an employee. But guess what? I might be basically terminated 2 days back. No one would know. I might still be around. So internal workforce remote access is critical, right? So gone are that VPN scenarios and all of that. How do we basically bring it? And again, this is not something that you can do by bringing in a zero trust network access tool in itself. There has to be policies. There has to be a rigor that you look at the cloud front and how we are going to basically look at your application stack as well. Because remember, you are going to have applications that are basically archaic, or as we call legacy, right? So typically you won't be able to lift and shift most of that application to the web or the cloud, because guess what? If you move legacy applications to the cloud, typically it will be 30% roughly, this is the approximation, costlier than having it in your data center. But if you make it cloud native, that's a game changer, right? You can shut down your computes. Today I shut down all of my UAT environments and all of that from 8 o'clock in the night to 6 o'clock in the morning. Could I have done it when it was here? On my data centers, I can't, right? Storage, of course, you have to pay, right? But that's where your advantage is. You have the advantage of elasticity if you are on basically on orchestration of microservices on whether it's Kubernetes or whether it's on Dockerization or whatever, right? But that's how it comes in, right? Extended workforce remote access again, it's again extending it. Some organizations would need it, some might not. For us, it's required. Mergers and acquisitions, we might buy certain other plants, factories, or organizations, and then you need to unify it. But you need to unify it as an extended workforce, because you need to unify the culture, you need to unify the policies, procedures, and all of that factors coming in. Privileged remote access, again, as I said, and on-premise access, again, is important. So on-premise access, you might be sitting in the office, but still you will be going through that round of zero access through a SASE model or whatever. Then these are the ZTNA aspects, platform connectivity and visibility and control, a bit more technical on this front. But platform is whether it's going to be cloud or whether it's going to be standalone. But again, visibility and control, there are two things. Connectivity, it's agent and agentless. You can install an agent if it's your own employees. You can't install an agent or EDR if it's your extended workforce, for example. So then you might have to go for an agentless. That's what connectivity is. Visibility and control, again, inline is basically there are zero access network tools basically covering lined up traffic. So it checks up every traffic from your application from the endpoint. But the other one is they take it out after you connect. So it is two aspects. So again, I'm not going to go into detail on this. So I'm going to finish up with the point that we may talk about zero trust today, right? And I love this meme again as well. The AI is coming in for real. Today, vulnerabilities can be exploited by basically a neural fuzzing. And likewise, in SAW and the SIEM architectures, AI can help us. But the reality is this has to be evolving discussion. This is not something that we can discuss today saying that this is a buzzword. So as we said, which is apt to the theme, zero trust is not a buzzword anymore. It is a strategy. It's a journey. And we have to keep at it. And it's not just about ensuring that these bullet points are ticked off. So with that, all the best, and I hope you go back and start thinking in a very different paradigm thinking in terms of the cybersecurity portion in your organization. Thank you.
For more latest news, subscribe to FTTV.